Coral, stay back with the others. There's walkers around here. Also, this video contains spoilers for The Walking Dead. Like, all of it, all the comics. Don't watch this video if you haven't read the comics.
In recent months, I've been getting into lots of new media. The Last of Us, which is also peak.
Oh. Why are these all stuck together?
Also Afro Samurai, which is forever peak. Fucking love that. Death Note, which is really peak. Had me on the edge of my seat whenever I was watching. And I got back into the Pokemon.
It's Pikachu!
Specifically competitive Pokemon. Thank you, Wolfie VGC. But on top of it all is Robert Kirkman's best work. No, it's not Invincible. No, it's not Tech Jacket. No, it's not Science Dog. And no, it's not Battle Pope. It's obviously peak incarnate, The Walking Dead.
Shut your fucking mouth! You son of a bitch!
I trust that you know what The Walking Dead is. I mean, you have to be living under a rock if you didn't. It is Robert Kirkman's most successful comic, the poster child for all zombie media, an amazing comic with a compelling story that explores themes of ambiguity of morality and the descent into human savagery, and humanity's resilience in the face of a zombie apocalypse. But I'm not here to talk about what everyone talks about with these comics. Instead, I want to talk about something very special to me in this comic that I haven't seen anywhere else on YouTube. This honestly angers me because it is such an important and meaningful part of the comic that it needs to be discussed more. I am talking about one of the most important panels in issue 191 that contains one of the most impactful quotes. This panel right here, where Rick is saying, "We are not the Walking Dead." This quote has so much meaning to the entire story and its characters, and in this video I will explain how this quote is perfect and brings everything that has happened in the comic and that will happen in the comic in the next two issues together. Now, first we need to know, why did Ricky Dicky Doodah Grimes say this? Is he stupid? What led to this moment in issue 191? Well, I'll tell you one thing. Rick Grimes had a very different view on this world than what I showed you in issue 191. And to find out Rick Grimes' views before, what broke him as a person, what changed within him, and what led him to this powerful exclamation in issue 191, "We are not the Walking Dead." That quote represents his views and how those views helped and impact so many people. To find out, we would need to start from the beginning, issue 1. As you know, Rick Grimes wakes up to a zombie apocalypse in the hospital after being in a coma because he got fucking shot when he was on police duty. After waking up, he gets his shit, he meets this guy Morgan, he goes to Atlanta, he meets Glenn, and he reunites with his family, Lori and Carl, and his best friend, who he doesn't know it yet, but he's been cracking his wife, and he's been plotting on this for so fucking long. There's a panel, I forgot what issue it was, it's not in the script, I'm just going off a fucking tangent, where Shane literally says, "You don't know how long I've been waiting for this." You fucking serious? That was never your homeboy, Rick. And also he meets a colorful cast of characters like Andrea, Dale, fucking that one bald dude, fucking Andrea's sister, Sophia. There's Sophia. Dude, these people don't fucking matter. Most of these people don't matter. They all die. But Rick doesn't know it yet, but these guys are basically gonna be his best friends, and he's all gonna see him die, so it's really gonna fuck him up. So in the midst of all the zombie apocalypse stuff, Rick's like, we need to leave Atlanta. We're not gonna live in the fucking outskirts. We're literally right there on the fucking highway. There's literally 200 feet from here, there's a bunch of walkers. Are we fucking serious? But then Shane's like, nah. No. I'll fucking kill you, son of a bitch! Shane is about to kill Rick, but his son Carl kills him before Shane can kill Rick. This was the first strike out of 3 before Rick completely breaks. The next strike would be in a few issues when Rick and the gang find an abandoned prison, but it isn't abandoned. There's still people in the prison. 4 prisoners are left: Axel, Andrew, Dexter, and Thomas Richards. At first, the group of survivors and the prisoners inhabit the prison. They all live peacefully, they all coexist, but the survivors start distrusting the prisoners. And Thomas Richards doesn't make it any better because he brutally murders Herschel's twin daughters, like he decapitates them. But in the end, they found out the murderer is Thomas and they beat the brakes off of him. With Thomas having killed the twins, the rest of the group face a moral dilemma, especially Rick. Do they kill him as punishment or punish him in a different way, like, I don't know, locking him back up? Rick ultimately decides to execute him, saying, "You kill, you die." Rick embraces this human savagery and tries to justify it with that rule. This is actually a pivotal moment in Rick's character, showing him where he stands morally. Tensions are high in the prison, and it all comes to a climax when walkers try to break into the prison, while Dexter and his gay lover Andrew hold the survivors hostage, forcing them to leave. So they temporarily have to work together to kill all the walkers, and during the firefight, Rick just fucking kills Dexter, like right there, and he's like, "Aw, shit, must have been the wind." But make no mistake, this was a difficult choice for Rick to make. And along with Thomas's murder spree, this is strike 2 out of 3 before his breaking point. And with all this happening, Carol tries to kill herself because she caught Tyrese getting some head from Michonne. Rick blames Tyrese for this and they start to fight. While fighting, they argue about who is morally correct. Rick brings up how Tyrese killed his daughter's boyfriend because he killed her in a failed suicide attempt. And when he did, he let them turn so he could punish the corpse. And Tyrese brings up how he saw Rick kill Dexter and how he cut off Alan's limb trying to save him from a walker bite. Rick then blacks out and falls off a railing. And when he wakes up, he accuses Tyrese of trying to kill him while Maggie and Glenn attempt to break up the fight. Andrea then comes downstairs and tells everyone that Alan died due to the infection and blood loss from his wound. This whole fight with Rick and Tyrese is Rick's third and final breaking point, and you can see Rick break in the next issue, in issue 24. In this issue, Rick wakes up after being asleep for 26 hours and Dale tells him that everyone has decided Rick is no longer the sole leader, and now it's Rick, Tyrese, Herschel, and Dale. Rick goes outside to the courtyard and informs Herschel that he accepts Dale's proposal, but he is more upset that people think he is crazy for killing Dexter. He then goes on with this speech on how the world has changed and the group of survivors have to change with it. He tells everyone to abandon all hopes of being rescued because this is the world they are living in. He says that the survivors will remain humane, but they will be ready to do whatever it takes to stay alive. He denounces his old rule of you kill, you die. It is now kill or be killed. He says that they're all living off borrowed time, that they become savages when they killed their first walker, that they all live surrounded by the dead. He then says that they do not live in the walls to protect them from the walking dead. We are the walking dead! Rick has this ideology that everyone is living off borrowed time and that life as they once knew will never return. This ideology is brought up repeatedly in the Walking Dead comic as the way many people think about the current life they are living, and soon this ideology will be proven wrong. But right now, the governor doesn't make it any better when he cuts off Rick's hand and then he raids the prison and he kills a good number of Rick's friends, his wife, and his newborn baby, Judith. For a while, Rick and his group hold on to the idea that they're living off borrowed time until he finds a civilization, Alexandria. Rick realizes that this place is worth fighting for, to make a new future. When Carl gets shot in the eye, Rick says to him, "I want to show you this new world. I want to make it a reality for you." Rick then finds other civilizations such as the Hilltop, the Kingdom, and the Saviors. The Saviors prove to be a great threat to the other communities after Negan bashed Glenn's head in, and he just bullies everyone and takes half their shit. Rick takes it upon himself with the help of other communities because he believes that these communities are worth fighting for and life doesn't have to be so bleak. And this is shown in issue 96. Rick has a speech to Glenn, Michonne, Andrea, and Carl about how when he first saw the Hilltop, he saw the future, the foundation to rebuilding society. It is what they have been fighting for. All their struggles and their will to keep pushing forward led to this. He ends this speech with, "This changes everything. Can't you see that? We can finally stop surviving and start living." This also can be seen in issue 97. When Rick is talking to Andrea, he tells her, "The Hilltop has me thinking about things differently. Maybe life doesn't have to be so bleak." Rick has found a light in his life, and he is willing to fight to achieve this light. His views and his mindset have changed very drastically since the pivotal moment in issue 24. When Rick first tries to fight against the Saviors retaliate heavily by killing Abraham and Glenn. Rick wants to kill all the Saviors, especially Negan for what happened, but he starts to take a smarter approach. As much as the people of Alexandria wanted to kill the prisoner Dwight, Rick let him go because he knew Alexandria couldn't defeat the Saviors by themselves. He needs to gather reinforcements from other communities. When the time comes, Rick takes a smart and peaceful approach to defeating Negan. Rick talks to Negan and helps him realize what all these communities have is special, and instead of Negan using fear and ruling with an iron fist, everyone can be equals and work together, trading goods to grow as a community and rebuild civilization. But Rick does slit Negan's throat.
Son of a bitch!
But he makes sure his life is prioritized and he keeps him alive so he can imprison him. So when Negan's in prison, he can see that all the good the communities can do when they work together. Rick introduces a more civilized way of life and punishment. Even though everyone wants to kill Negan, Rick won't allow this. This starts a new era, a beginning of a more peaceful and civilized way of living, as opposed to the savagery everyone was used to, and the savagery everyone thought they needed to survive. And you know what? Everyone listens to Rick, because they believe in him. Like what Maggie said when she took over the Hilltop from that coward Gregory in issue 118, "I believe in Rick Grimes." And Jesus also tells Rick in issue 114, "You are a leader we can follow." He tells Rick none of this would be happening if Rick didn't give people the chance to fight against their oppressors and stand up for what's right. And that is what these people in all these communities need. They need hope. We can find this theme of Rick being the leader people need in later issues, but we'll get to that soon. There's a time skip of 2 years and shows all the communities prospering, all thanks to the work of Rick Grimes uniting the people and rebuilding society. But this is threatened by the Whisperers. Their leader Alpha infiltrated Alexandria during the fair and killed 12 people and put their head on pikes to mark their border. Everyone in all the communities is outraged because they all have been affected by this massacre. They press Rick to retaliate and basically go to war against the Whisperers. Rick doesn't want this because he fears that he will lose what he has built for everyone. And on top of that, Rick learns Maggie's fucking up what he's building, the example he's putting, the example of peace, because she executed Gregory for him trying to assassinate her. Which, you know, I guess it's fair, but he's trying to put up the example for peacefulness, Maggie, and you just killed him. Rick is honestly lost, and he looks to none other than Negan for help. Negan basically tells him to manipulate his people using the truth of the situation to do so. In Negan's words, and yet, our common ground, the thing we can both agree on, is that as a leader, you must do whatever it takes to keep the people safe. And Rick does just that, and the people follow him completely because they believe in him. He is a person they can all trust with their lives, not only because he has proven himself, but also he goes up on the stage and gives his speech announcing the formation of a military to combat the Whisperers, while still being covered in blood from an attack by 2 people, 2 of his own, in his own community. He unites the people together, and everyone chants his name. He is Uniter, and this unity will help stop the Whisperers from fucking with the communities. Alexandria wins the war against the Whisperers, but the Whisperers send one final humongous wave of a herd of walkers. It's not even a herd at this point, this shit's a fucking tsunami, and it is at the cost of Andrea's life. But on her deathbed, her final words to Rick stick with him. She tells him that people need him, he has built something important, and he needs to keep fighting to keep it, and he must not give up. He is a shining beacon in a world of darkness. He made an oasis in a world full of shit. He made it possible for these communities to work together, to grow stronger, and that makes him stronger. These words stick with Rick throughout the rest of the comic, and I feel like this is where Rick's character evolution hits its final stage. He is at a peak of his moral compass, his leadership skills, and everyone believes in him. After the Whisperers, Rick encounters the Commonwealth and sees the community for what it truly is. It is an unfair classist society that sticks to the old ways of living, with the type of job you had before the apocalypse started, which doesn't make any fucking sense, because if you're a kid who came in here, you're fucked. You have no skills, no nothing. You start as a fucking baker in a bakery like Michonne's daughter. And not only your career before the apocalypse determines your career now, it also determines your living condition. Will you be lower class or will you be higher class? Does this sound familiar in any way, shape, or form? And he sees the governor of the Commonwealth, Pamela Milton, for what she truly is. A person who clings to power and craves that power above all else. She would lead her own people to kill each other just to keep that power. Most of the people of the Commonwealth know this, and this all boils to the point to a near civil war in issue 191. In the previous issue, issue 190, the final page is Pamela Milton telling her army to attack the rebellion, but the first page of issue 191 is Rick yelling at everyone to stop. Side note, the compendium, when you read this compendium, it's like a really nice contrast with Pamela telling them to attack, and then Rick is like, no, stop, please. I like it. Rick gives this amazing, powerful speech to everyone who is about to kill each other. The people there do not want to kill each other. Rick looks around and sees fear, anger, and hatred, but that is not the Commonwealth. That is not who they are. Rick then raises his arm, the one where his hand was cut off by the governor back in issue 28, and exclaims, "This is who we are!" His missing hand shows how this war has scarred everyone, both physically and mentally. It serves as a reminder of what they had to do and endure to survive, and to be safe, to be close to the way things used to be. Rick then denounces his old way of thinking back in issue 24. They no longer had to put their humanity on hold and embrace the savageness to survive, because they thought the world they once knew was gone. But Rick admits, the way he used to think was wrong. He sees the future ahead and it's bright. They no longer live surrounded by the dead. They are no longer among them. They are no longer living off borrowed time. They do not live minute to minute in minutes stolen from the dead. They can be content. They have peace now. They can live again. This is when Rick says the big one, the greatest quote of all The Walking Dead, the one that ties his development as a character and the speech together, the one that unites everybody. Rick exclaims, "We are not The Walking Dead!" He truly denounces his exclamation in issue 24 because he sees the truth now, that the rebuilding of society is here, and they no longer must live off borrowed time. Humans are taking back the earth. They no longer must be the Walking Dead because they deserve a better world free from those old, flawed, and unfair systems that beat the little man into the ground and uphold the rich. They no longer must embrace a savage nature to survive. They can and must start living together. Rick successfully stopped a civil war with his speech. It affected and spoke to everyone, uniting them to benefit the Commonwealth and to change for the better. But he also affected Sebastian. Sebastian is Pamela Milton's daughter, and he's a spoiled little bastard of a son. And later that night, Sebastian comes into Rick's room and kills him in cold blood. The murder of Rick Grimes affected everyone. Carl is the first to find Rick reanimated as a walker, and he had to put his own father down. Later, when Carl is talking to Michonne, he recalls when he and Rick escaped the prison and stayed in an abandoned home in issue 48. And Carl thought his father was dead because he was incredibly ill. He was so scared of being alone that he thought dying would be better than living without him. And truth be told, he's still scared of living without his father. Carl then goes to visit Pamela Milton about Rick's killer, and she confirms that it was her son Sebastian. Pamela expects Carl to do something drastic to Sebastian, but Carl just asks if Sebastian will be punished, and Pamela affirms. Carl then tells Pamela he is sorry for what she is going through. This really highlights how Rick's teachings influence Carl. He doesn't seek revenge for his father's death and continue the cycle of violence. He knows Sebastian's going to get what he deserves, life behind bars. Carl even says it himself when he goes to visit Sebastian. Your mother was worried I was going to take matters in my own hands, kill you for revenge. I like this better. I get to check on you, see your misery. You get to sit and remember the life you had. That's a far better punishment than death. My dad taught me that. It's more civilized. It's what he would have wanted. When it comes time to bury Rick and Alexandria next to Andrea, Carl asks Maggie who wants to come bury him. It then shows this double spread of everyone from the Commonwealth, the reinforcements from Alexandria and the Hilltop, and also the Kingdom. Rick impacted everyone's life here one way or another, and they want to return the favor by coming along to respect his legacy. On the way to Alexandria, Carl falls out of the wagon and starts to cry. He says that Rick has sacrificed so much. At least Andrea got to say goodbye, but Rick, he's just gone. Everything is better, everything is safer because of Rick. He survived so much, but now he's dead. The issue ends with Carl crying, saying that he cannot go on with him anymore. Now, in issue 193, the final issue, we can see what all of Rick's work has come up to. We see the Commonwealth a significant number of years later and how it's prospering. We all see these old characters, all the lives they were given thanks to Rick. There's even a statue in Rick's honor to pay respects to him and everything he's built, and his wise words are still being used years later after his passing. In the trial against Carl Grimes and Herschel Green, Maggie and Glenn's son, and Carl's on trial because he killed Herschel's walker, which is his property. Just some context. Read the actual issue. Read all The Walking Dead for that fact. Michonne, who is now Judge Hawthorne, she's the judge of the Commonwealth, but that's besides the point. She uses the words engraved on the base of the statue of Rick Grimes to make a verdict on the punishment of Carl. How many hours are in a day when you don't spend half of them watching television? When is the last time any of us really worked to get something that we wanted? How long has it been since any of us has really needed something that we wanted? The world we knew is gone. The world of commerce and frivolous necessity has been replaced by a world of survival and responsibility. An epidemic of apocalyptic proportions has swept the globe, causing the dead to rise and to feed on the living. In a matter of months, society has crumbled. No government, no grocery stores, no mail delivery, no cable TV. In a world ruled by the dead, we are forced to finally start living. Michonne uses these words to make the point that the dead made them live, and it involved a lot of sacrifices. They live in a happier world, but they shall never forget who they lost along the way. She comes to the conclusion that owning a walker and displaying them is a horrible practice, and doing so makes them forget all the sacrifices and dishonoring those they lost. She puts a motion to outlaw this practice throughout the Commonwealth, and that Carl Grimes is free to go. In the end of the issue, Rick tells his daughter, Andrea, the story of Rick Grimes that I will now read to you. Do not fear, dear reader, for this may seem like a scary book at first, and your mommy and daddy may even read it in a scary voice. Shame on them. But this is not a scary story. This is a story about hope. One day, a long time ago, dead people decided they didn't want to be dead anymore. Nobody knows why, and don't be embarrassed, it scared everyone. Nobody knew what was happening or why, but life changed. Everyone was tested. That's why this time came to be called the trials. You've probably heard your parents talk about it. It was a scary time, and many good, strong people lost themselves along the way. They started to forget who they were. They even started to forget what was good and bad. They only worried about living. There was no time to follow the rules. Almost nobody brushed their teeth or went to sleep by their bedtime. A great darkness fell across the whole world. It made everyone sad. People didn't know if things would ever go back to normal. Most people were sure it never would, and they got sadder and meaner. When things were at their darkest, a man came along, someone who had been hurt by the trials, but he didn't let it make him sad. Not all the time at least, and we all know it's okay to be sad sometimes. Rick Grimes had an idea. He knew that if we stayed together and made friends instead of enemies, we could do anything, even remake the world. He made friends and lost friends as he moved across the country. He met people he thought would be friends, but they turned out to be bad. He sometimes had to hurt the bad people to protect his friends. Sometimes he was scared that he was becoming a bad person, but he never did. And he taught other people how to not let the trials turn them into bad people. He even met bad people and turned them into friends. Rick traveled far and wide, always bringing his friends with him, and they made him stronger. They made him safe. And he taught people how to make friends and use them to make them stronger and safer. The trials made people so angry that some of them just wanted to fight, but Rick knew that this was wrong. He showed them how to be friends instead. The trials were dangerous times, and even Rick didn't survive them, but he was able to show us the way. With his teachings, the trials ended, and life returned to normal. We even have ice cream again. People are happy instead of sad, and safe instead of scared, and nice instead of mean, all because someone was strong enough to do what was right. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you're there, and you're safe because of Rick Grimes. You really would have liked him. Who? Your grandfather. He did all those things. My father, your grandfather, Rick Grimes. This book is about him. I know, Dad, you tell me that every time. Read it again! It's just so peak. This story, I feel, perfectly embodies the quote, "We are not the Walking Dead." It is all about returning to the way of living and no longer living off borrowed time. It is a story about perseverance and working together, not embracing savagery that was once thought needed to survive. And because of that, society was rebuilt. And most of all, it's a story about hope. This may be the end of The Walking Dead, but I do want to talk about how Rick's teachings influence people in the comic. And one of the first people he influences is Magnus Group. We first meet Magnus Group in issue 127, where they're still surviving out in the wild. They are swarmed by zombies but are saved by Jesus. This is when Magnus says something very important to show her mindset, while she's living out in the wild with the walkers, fighting to survive every day. During the attack of the herd, her friend Bernie dies. This is when Kelly blames Jesus for Bernie's death, but Magna replies with, "Bernie died the day the dead started to walk. Same as the rest of us, Kelly. We're living off borrowed time. You know that." Again, there it is. We're living off borrowed time. I told you this was going to keep appearing. Magna has the same line of thought as Rick did in issue 24, with the idea of living off borrowed time, but she acknowledges that her and her group do not have to live like this. She recognizes if Jesus and everyone else were devising a synchronized cattle drive to lead the walker herd away, it means they have a place worth protecting. Magna's group is much like Rick's group. They stayed in a big facility until it wasn't safe anymore, and lost many of their own along the way until they found a community that acted as a shining beacon of hope. They both had the same ideals of living on borrowed time until they saw these communities and knew this is worth fighting for, and they could finally start living. Another time Rick's words affected the people who listened is Mercer and Michonne. In issue 185, when Dwight does the act of civil protest and gets erected. What? Dwight got arrested. He didn't get erected. Anyway, Rick and Dwight have an argument in Dwight's jail cell. Rick yells at Dwight, telling him what he's doing isn't the right way of going about things. He recognizes the Commonwealth's many problems, but Dwight painting the governor as a villain isn't the right way to go. This is because there is no clear line of good and evil. Something needs to be done to fix the problems of the Commonwealth, that's for sure. But what Dwight is doing is dangerous. When Rick leaves and encounters Mercer, Mercer tells Rick Grimes, "You're the leader the Commonwealth needs." Mercer recognizes Rick Grimes' leadership and his views in the world, and he knows that he is the leader the people the Commonwealth needs. The way he sees things and his sense of right and wrong is what is needed to fix the Commonwealth's problems. In the next issue, Rick and Michonne discuss what Dwight has done and also said to Rick in the prison. Rick and Michonne both agree that the ways of the Commonwealth are backwards and unfair. Michonne points out that the people do not need to be helped with violence, but with Rick's sense of fairness, and to show them a better way. And in the end, he does with the quote, "We are not the Walking Dead." Michonne, like many others, believes in Rick Grimes because of his ways of thinking and his moral compass. That is why so many people are influenced by him and follow him. But no one was more affected by Rick's words and sense of fairness than Negan. Negan had one of the craziest character developments in the comics. He started out as this deranged son of a bitch that ruled with fear and an iron fist. But we did see he had some sense of morals when he killed anyone who tried raping someone who was defenseless. But other than that, he really was a ruthless monster who needed to be taken care of. He literally told Rick, "I just slid my dick down your throat and you just thanked me for it." He said this shit after he killed his best friend, by the way. Are you fucking serious?
Son of a bitch!
And you know what? He was taken care of, and in prison, but not before Rick talks some sense in him and tells Negan if they all work together, they can make this world a safer place and rebuild civilization. And Negan realizes this immediately, right before getting his throat slit. So,
You son of a bitch!
Negan had 2 years in the cell to think, and he did. We get a look into how Negan used to think in issue 164 when he is trapped in the house with Rick, while the biggest hurt they ever saw is outside. He says that he mostly saw everyone as weak and scared, doing anything in their power to get themselves killed. He lost all respect in the human race, and it made it easier to be crueler and kill people. But he tells Rick that he helped him see another way. That's why earlier in the comics, he stayed in his cell when Olivia forgot to lock it, why he killed Alpha and brought Rick her head, and that's why he saved Rick's life a few pages earlier. This is one of the first biggest signs of Negan's character development, the effect Rick's words and mindset had on him. And in issue 174, the last time we see Negan in the comics, Maggie comes to Negan's house threatening to kill him, like nothing that Rick has done up to this point fucking mattered, but that's besides the point. I get it, she's angry about her husband's death, but anyway, this is where Negan apologizes to Maggie for what he did to her and everything he has done in general. He basically says the same thing he did in issue 164, how his nerves wore off and he got used to killing, and he even enjoyed it sometimes. But then, he mentions how Rick showed him the way, how they could make this world a better place and it didn't have to become a sack of shit in order to survive. I believe that Rick's words and way of thinking that are embodied in the quote, "We are not the Walking Dead," had the most effect on Negan as a character. To see such a drastic shift in character is honestly beautiful to see, what the influence of one good person can have on another, and it fits perfectly in the story. Carl tells his daughter at the end of the comic how Rick turned bad people into friends. That bad person is Negan, even though I'm pretty sure he exiled himself, but that's besides the point. They basically became friends in the grand scheme of things. Rick Grimes went through extensive character development throughout the entire comic. He started off thinking that everyone is living off borrowed time, and life will never go back to how it was before the zombie outbreak, because of all the things he had to endure, so much pain up until that point. But upon discovering Alexandria and the hilltop, the kingdom, he realizes that these places are worth fighting for, and they are not living off borrowed time anymore. And most people depend on him. They believe in him. He is building this new world, and he is rebuilding society. He's lost so much and made so many sacrifices, but he continues to be a beacon of hope in a world full of shit. And that is exactly what his wife Andrea tells him in her deathbed, and it stays with him throughout the rest of the comic. And when he learns about the Commonwealth, he knows something. Something must be done about its classist and backwards ways. This all comes to his most powerful speech where he exclaims, "We are not the Walking Dead." This single quote summarizes his current viewpoints, how his character has evolved, how he went from a broken man to a leader that represents a beacon of hope for so many people. That quote brings his character arc full circle, and now his story is complete, but the effects of his words aren't gone. Years later, in the final issue, we see how people still talk about Rick Grimes. They have a statue of him outside of the courthouse. Michonne uses Rick's words in court to defend Carl and make a verdict. And in the end of the issue, Carl tells the story of Rick Grimes. Because none of this, the communities, the railroads, and the society wouldn't be here without him. The main ideas of the quote, "We are not the Walking Dead," influenced many other people as well. They either used to think that everyone was living off borrowed time, or realized Rick's leadership skills are needed, or someone who had lost all faith in the human race. They all were influenced by Rick and had a change of heart, especially Negan. He quite literally says outright, Rick helped him see the way. The ideas and meaning of the quote, "We are not the Walking Dead," while not said directly, have affected the story and characters so much, giving everyone what they needed in a time of an apocalypse. Hope. And this quote doesn't have to apply to the apocalypse. This can apply to our own lives. If you have something that you hold dear to your heart, like your own Alexandria, and if it's worth fighting for, you need to try to fight for it. Don't run away from it and let it go to shit. Because we are not the Walking Dead, and we don't have to be. Because you need to live. "We are not the Walking Dead" is the greatest quote in all of the Walking Dead comic, for how perfectly it puts together Rick's character development and brings it to an end. Even in death, Rick's words still affect the world a number of years later, when Carl is grown and people still tell his story. And finally, Rick Grimes' words that the quote represents, had an effect on so many people, like Magda and her group, Mercer, and most of all Negan. That is why We Are Not the Walking Dead is the greatest quote in all of the series, in the comics, the TV show, and even the games. Thank you for watching this video, and thank you to my amazing team of editors for helping peer review the script. It was one person, it was my friend Joel. But thank you for making this video possible, Joel. This video has been my dream video since April, and I'm pretty sure in my Rick Grimes 2000 video I said May, but when I thought about it more, I realized I started writing this on my school computer in April, and then in May I sent it over to my main PC. So, yeah. I watched a video about the end of the Walking Dead comic, and that quote in particular stood out to me so much. And when I looked it up on YouTube, because I really wanted to see if anyone made a video essay about this, I was surprised because there was no video solely dedicated to this quote. So for the past like 3 months, I bought all the Walking Dead compendiums except the first one. I read it online on my school computer before my school fucking blocked the website. And you know what? I still use that fucking website to get all the pictures for this video. So, fuck you! So I had to stack my money and buy the rest of the compendiums so I can read them at school because I never had the time to get on my PC after school. But that's besides the point. I like reading physical books. And each time I saw something that I could possibly use in the video, I took a picture of it. My whole Walking Dead reading experience was me gathering evidence for this video. And it was so fun knowing that this was going towards my dream project, and now it's complete. And I'm very proud of it, in all honesty. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Until next time, goodbye.
That's what I'm talking about. This shit means something to me, man.